Good morning everyone. Today we will discuss about the next session of periodic classification of elements. In previous section we had already discussed about the Daubernier triads. John Wolfgang Daubernier was the scientist who tried to classify the elements that were known at that time, but that was rejected. Now the another scientist came, John Newland. He was an English scientist, arranged the known elements in the order of their increasing atomic masses. Again keep this thing in mind. Daubernier also arranged the elements on the basis of their increasing atomic masses. The same was done by Newland. And their arrangement was called law of octaves. It is known as Newlands Law of Octave. The first one question, as in the Daubernier triad, it was that why it is known as Daubernier triad? Because that was the arrangement of 3 elements. At the same time we can say here Newlands arranged 8 elements in the order of their increasing atomic masses. Like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And he told, according to his law, the properties of the first one will be repeated by the 8th element. So the property of hydrogen that is shown in his table, the property of hydrogen will be repeated by fluorine. This was his arrangement, that when elements are arranged in the order of their increasing atomic masses, then the property of every 8th elements were similar to that of first one. So if this one will be the first, then fluorine will be 8. If lithium will be the first, sodium will be 8. So the property of hydrogens will be repeated by fluorine. The properties of lithium will be repeated by sodium. It was shown by John Newland. So this was known as Newland's law of octave. Now I think you understand why it is known as octaves, because 8th element funda was there, that the property of first one were similar to that of the 8th element. The property of first one was similar to the 8th element. So he arranged the element like this. You can see here. This was the table which shows Newland's octave. So characteristic of Newland's law of octave was it contained the elements from hydrogen to thorium. And the properties of every 8th element were similar to that of the first element. These are the 2 characteristics of Newland's law of octaves. Remember the thing, we are discussing about the earlier attempts related to the classification of elements. Now we will find out that why this kind of classification were not applicable. So limitations of Newland's law. The law was applicable to elements up to calcium only. That means this one, that first property of first one will be repeated by the 8th one. This was applicable only and only up to calcium. This one is the calcium. Calcium is having atomic mass 40. So only till the atomic mass 40 this method was applicable. It contained only 56 elements. Further, it was assumed by Newlands that only 56 elements existed in nature and no more elements would be discovered in the future. This was the assumption of Newland, that only these elements will be present, but in future new elements discovered, as we all know. So Newland's law of octave were not applicable on the newly discovered element. Number 3rd, in order to fit elements into the table, Newlands adjusted 2 elements in the same slot. Slot means same place. Like you can see here you can see that at one place there are two elements. So at one place you can see here also there are two elements, cobalt and nickel. So to fit the like elements and to fit the similar elements, he provide same slot to the two elements and also put some unlike elements under same node. Means the elements which have similar properties, they are placed far from each other, means at different places, but the elements which are having different properties are placed at the same place. So like elements are far and unlike elements are in same slot. For example, cobalt and nickel are in the same slot and these are placed in the same column as fluorine, chlorine and bromine, which have very different properties than these elements. So you can see in the table, cobalt and nickel, they are in the column where hydrogen is there, fluorine is there, chlorine is there. But the properties of hydrogen, fluorine, chlorine were not similar like cobalt and nickel. So how they can be placed at this area? In one column, the properties should be similar, but the cobalt and nickel is not showing the similar property. Iron, which resembles cobalt and nickel in properties, has been placed differently away from these elements. Now you can see here iron. Where is iron? So iron we can find out, okay, iron. This one is iron. Iron is placed very far from cobalt and nickel. You can see here cobalt and nickel are at this place and nickel is at this place. So they are very far from each other, whereas their properties are similar. So we can say the elements which do not have the similar properties with the other members of that column are placed together. But the elements which have similar properties, they are very far from each other. So these are some drawbacks of Newlands Law of Octave. So that's why Newlands Law of Octave was also rejected. And in the next session, we will discuss about the new pattern, a different, another scientist. We will discuss about the another scientist, that how they discovered, they classified, not discovered, they classified the elements. Hope you understand it. Have a good day.